Hi, welcome to the Massage Room with Dave and Kai. I'm Dave.
I'm Kai. Nice to meet you.
And we are here to talk about the changes to the massage therapy industry after COVID. It's a big conversation, a lot of questions, and in our experience, nobody's really been talking about this or really asking these kind of questions.
Yeah, or at least talking about it in this way. Like a lot of people have talked about how it's going to affect massage like on a contraindication level, which is important. And that is definitely information that we need to, talk about, but not about like the actual industry changes that have happened.
Yeah, and they've been substantial. So what would you say probably was the single biggest shift you've noticed in the industry after COVID, Kai?
Honestly, the mass retirement of a lot of the senior therapists all over the industry. It's been an interesting experience because I moved to Portland from Texas where there were, you could sling a dead cat and hit 15 therapists who are also yoga teachers, who are also wellness coaches. And there are so few therapists now who with more than 8 years of experience are actually in the industry practicing there. And even here too in Portland, it's intense. I have a few clients who are seasoned therapists and they've just hung up their holster and they're done.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of a misconception right on the baseline of, what does the demographic of massage therapists look like? And I think many people think of massage like any other industry where you've got a fairly even distribution of your 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, 50-somethings, 60-somethings. And the truth of the matter is simply it's just not that way. The full career lifespan of your average therapist is 5 years.
If that.
So the ones who've managed to last into year 10 or 12 or 15, those are your veteran therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. We've seen kind of a mass exodus of therapists, either because they retired or because, unfortunately, they caught COVID and weren't able to work.
Yeah.
But I would say another major thing that I've noticed was the disruption of massage education in the massage schools.
Yeah.
When COVID was going on and, a lot of massage schools had to shutter and close their doors, a lot of students got their educations delayed. In the best case, by somewhere around 3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. But for some schools, in the worst case, they weren't able to put out graduates for about a solid year. So not only have we seen the older, more experienced end of our profession kind of retire, we've also had a great reduction in the input of new therapists into the profession, leading to an overall therapist crunch.
Yeah.
I pay attention to the news a lot and things that are being said.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's screaming about a labor shortage right now. There's a labor shortage. And there's an argument to be made that it's not, in fact, a labor shortage. It is a living wage shortage, right?
Yes.
Shortage of jobs, paying the living wage. But in our profession, I really do see that there is a labor shortage. We do not have enough licensed therapists that are employed to service all of the clients that are trying to book massage and bodywork services. So in our profession, I really do see this as probably one of the most fundamental, one of the more major shifts that's happened is there's just a shocking shortage of therapists. There is a glut of clients, after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everyone needs some body work, man. After 3 years of being isolated, everyone needs
human touch is so critical. So important.
And if you didn't think if you thought you could overrule the need for human touch before the pandemic, we got news for you.
You can't.
No.
Massage guns are great. It's not the same.
Foam rolling is awesome. But in, skilled hands with intuitive touch, someone putting their hands on you who can feel where the tension is and can help, coax the body into relaxation or into greater mobility. There really is no substitute for it. And the true, I think, lingering effect of COVID on our industry has just been really highlighted the need for the public, for the need for our services. At the same time, it's kneecapped the number of available therapists out there. So the bold face challenge, it's sitting in the room staring everyone in the eye. Almost every massage business that I've spoken to in the last year or 2 years, consistently they are telling me they are all having the same problem. They cannot find therapists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is an interesting problem to have. Usually it's the clients that you're trying to run around and find.
Seriously.
But what a lot of these spas are saying is like, no, dude, we've got clients for days. We don't have the therapists to service the client base that we've built.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and going back to the labor shortage, I've been looking at a lot of job postings online in preparation for this podcast, but also just because I like seeing what's out there in the industry. There was one place that was hiring here in town.
So we're in Portland, Oregon, by the way.
Yeah. Wasn't a franchise.
Okay.
Starting pay, they were looking for a lead therapist, was $20 to $25 an hour. 25 was actually the pay cap for a lead therapist at a non-franchise position. You in Portland, you can make that working in the restaurant industry easily before tips. Like, they are not paying the therapists that they're trying to find enough, which is one of the reasons why, like you said, businesses are just struggling to try and find people. I've also known a lot of therapists in town who've just gone straight to private practice and just said bah humbug with all the working for other people, which I get.
But
that isn't for everyone. Like,
I
ran a thriving practice for years down in Texas, and I don't want to do that again. It was a lot of work. I like being able to go into work, do my job, clock out, and leave. Like, it's really, really nice to not have to worry about marketing, laundry, all the laundry again. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I think franchise spas and, kind of the corporate massage gigs, I do think they get a bad rep for, they've got a reputation of being kind of slave drivers. It's all about quantity over quality, right? It's all about the volume of clients they're able to service in your period, right? Day, week, whatever your period is. But I think one of the new trends that we're starting to see is, and this cuts across all labor markets, this isn't just massage, this is all over, but we're starting to see people who are less and less willing to do more menial or certain kind of customer service jobs, which we could argue are a bit degrading.
More than a bit.
But what we're generally seeing is just a lack of the willingness to deal with those kind of jobs for the amount of pay that generally comes with those jobs.
Yeah.
So for massage therapy in particular, like you said, a job for a lead therapist, if you're not familiar with the role of a lead therapist, it's easy to just think, well, you're, the senior one. But no, the lead therapist is the one that sets the tone in the back of the house. The lead therapist, almost like a manager, but not a manager. They're the ones that are, doing the massage job interviews for your potential new hires. They're the ones who are getting on the table for these job applicants to test their skills on. This is the person who's assessing the worthiness of all the people that you're considering hiring in your business.
Tying into that, like, don't just think that being a lead therapist is, I'm going to work to get massages and getting paid for it. It's no.
Lead therapists are almost always service providing therapists. They have their own clients. They have their own schedule. They're doing the lead therapist stuff is generally on top of the hours that they're facing clients, rendering services. So for lead therapists who will be doing these interview massage where they're receiving massage from new hire candidates, they are also responsible generally for implementing the training of that spa. Right? Spas oftentimes have rules and procedures, protocols for certain services. There's just ways that things need to be done. And the lead therapist is the one that's responsible for not only informing and training the new hires about those systems, but enforcing them and making sure that even the people, who've been here a while are still on board with the things. And I think finally, the lead therapist role is very important because this is the one that sets the tone and the morale for everything that's going on in the back of the house. If you don't have a quality lead therapist, then what you have is a staff of therapists who are essentially siloed away from the rest of your business. If you think about your most successful massage therapist, when they're busy, they're locked in a room one-on-one with clients, literally and figuratively in the dark. They don't see the problems that your business is facing. They're not seeing the business trends. They're not seeing differences that are happening with your client base. They're not fielding problems with the front desk. I mean, the busier and more successful your therapists are, ideally, the more and more isolated they are from understanding the full workings of your business and really what's going on. Yeah. The lead therapist role is the role that's meant to kind of bridge that gap of ignorance to make sure that the needs and the goals of the business are being, enforced and followed through and just kept top of mind to the staff on the back of the house who, again, if you're doing your job well as a business owner and manager, your massage staff is busy. They're spending most of their days, locked in their massage room working with clients, which is exactly where you want them to be. Because if they're not in that room, they're not making you money. Mm-hmm. But the role of a lead therapist is generally going to go to, a more senior therapist at your location, someone who's intimately familiar with your policies, your procedures, the flow of your business, someone you really trust to toe the company line. But also, lead therapists will generally tend to be veteran therapists. It's not very often you get a lead therapist who was hired right out of school. These are people who they've paid their dues, so to speak. Usually I think when I think of a lead therapist, I'm thinking a minimum of 5 years of massage experience. So starting someone as a lead therapist at the job posting you were saying at $20-25 an hour, I mean, that's
insulting.
Realistically, that's the floor of where a brand new therapist, fresh out of school, I mean, your license is still warm off the printer.
Yeah.
That person should go start at somewhere around $20-25 an hour. So as a lead therapist, I would, at a minimum, expect $3 to $5 more per hour. Mm-hmm. Depending, of course, on how that pay is structured. And that's a whole other conversation, whether it's commission or hourly. There's a lot of different ways that we could skin that particular cat. Generally, if you're starting off your brand new therapist at 20 to 25, then your lead therapist should be making somewhere around 23 to 30 an hour.
Really? See, I would think the lead therapist should start off at 30 an hour and then go up to probably about 35 with that pay structure. Mind you, I didn't actually interview at that business, wasn't offered a job. I was just looking at their Indeed job posting.
But the job posting tells you a lot.
Yeah.
I feel. And especially when you're posting for a position like that at a pay rate like that, to me as a rather savvy job hunter, I'm reading these things all the time, just like you are.
Yeah.
But what that says to me is, even if you've been here a while, even if you've gained seniority,
they're not going to value you.
This is what we pay our top people. Mm-hmm. The person who's cracking the whip on my back of the house to keep my sales goals, to keep my revenue goals. Mm-hmm. If you're not paying that person what the job entails, and again, like you said, it's not just getting on the table and getting a massage. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. The lead therapist is the one that's, you got to have uncomfortable conversations. The lead therapist is often the one that's doing initial write-ups. They're the ones that are usually doing the initial disciplinary actions.
Not to mention, one thing that a lot of lead therapists have to do is making the therapist schedules. And balancing the schedules, making sure that each therapist has the room or has a room or the room that they want, depending on how nice the lead is. Like, it is a lot of administrative work.
When you get into spas that have more therapists than they have treatment rooms, how would we put this? Logistically, it becomes interesting when you've got, say 14 therapists scheduled in that day, but, you've got 7 or 8 or 10 actual treatment rooms. There needs to be a little bit of creative thinking that goes into figuring those things out. Those just normal daily business logistics. It's a lot easier for places that have
a lot of
rooms. A room for every therapist.
Yeah. But like the clinic I work at, we each have our own rooms, and it's fantastic.
Same. Same with me. But you're right. There's a lot of administrative stuff. There's a lot of logistical stuff. Mm-hmm. I do hesitate to say the word manager, because that manager usually is a larger role than what the lead therapist would play. But certainly on the back of the house, this is the person who's in control. This is the person who is setting the tone. Like I said, they're setting the morale for your team. They're the ones that are communicating your business goals, whether that's a revenue goal or a client goal or an upsell goal.
Retention goal.
Client retention, therapist request rates. This month our promotion is the pumpkin spice aromatherapy add-on. Make sure we're plugging that. The lead therapist is your cheerleader and your spokesperson who comes from the management room to having a conversation with you, the manager, the owner, and then delivers that message to the troops, right? To the service providers. So it's more than just getting on the table and getting an interview massage. It's more than just making a little schedule every now and then. For a really well-functioning spa, you need a very well-trained staff. And that starts with a lead therapist. And again, right person in the right position, hiring the right lead therapist could make or break your business. In my experience, it's worth paying the person what they are worth. Yeah. And so, when you say
20 to
25 an hour for a lead therapist, that does not strike me as a pay rate that is commensurate with generally what the workload would entail. So
you want to hear the kicker about the entire job posting that just really sent it over the edge for me?
Do it. What?
In the actual posting, it said if a therapist calls in sick, the lead therapist would be responsible for picking up the shift.
Yeah.
On top of maintaining minimum 25 hours per week hands-on with clients.
Yeah. That point did cross my mind a few minutes ago. I kept talking and forgot to mention it. But a lot of times the lead therapist is the stopgap therapist. Like you're the one on call if someone gets sick or whatnot, can't serve as a client. You're the one who's got to leave house and head into work and take that one client for the day,
Or a full load of 6 1-hour appointments back to back on top of your normal shifts, which is a lot.
I was going for the inconvenience factor of I got to come in for this one massage. No,
I'm going for the carpal tunnel. You're going to destroy your career. Yeah.
Carpal tunnel, or God forbid, one of our coworkers caught COVID or something like that. And they're out for a substantial amount of time. Yeah. And all of a sudden you've got a lot of clients to pick up.
And that actually leads me into one of the other points I wanted to make about practicing during the pandemic is a lot of us would practice even when we were sick beforehand. We would take our cold medicine.
You didn't hear it from us, folks.
No, I never did. I am a big baby when I'm sick. I just want to be curled up in bed with a nice pillow and a nice blanket and just sleep it out. But a lot of us would come in and practice sick. But with the pandemic, we're supposed, don't practice when you have COVID. We're supposed to stay home. And we're supposed to actually take that time off from work, which most of us don't do.
I mean, given the nature of our profession, you're right. In school and all the textbooks and everything, you're always trained, if you don't feel well,
don't come in.
Don't go to work. You work very closely with people. You have anything that might be contagious or whatnot, you always want to err on the side of caution. But that being said, we both came of age in an American
healthcare
work
system
culture that says if you're not going to work, then what are you doing?
Yeah, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, and that's really the thrust of it is, massage therapists generally didn't enter the profession because we are so financially savvy. No one goes into massage therapy because I'm independently wealthy and I just needed something to do with my time. Massage therapy calls the empaths and the caregivers and the sensitive types. I ask this question all the time and I always get the same answer. I really should come up with a new question. But anytime I'm in front of a group of students or a therapist, you always ask them what got you into massage therapy. And they'll tell you a story or their anecdote about, what event it was. But at the end of the story, the point of their story is always the same. We all come into massage therapy because we want to help people. Not because we're rich, not because we're so business savvy. Believe me, if we were rich and business savvy, I would have gone into cybersecurity or something like that. I would have been in high level finance or something like that. But unfortunately, my brain doesn't do numbers. So here we are. Yeah. But we are called to this profession because we're caregivers and we're empaths. We do tend to overwork ourselves. There is the financial component. We, just like everybody else, we still got to go to work. And if I take off work that day, I don't get paid. Yep. So especially when you're dealing with an industry that works off of a book, right? I have this schedule. For me, it's just a random Tuesday. But for my first client, they could have booked this appointment days or weeks, maybe even a couple of months ago. It's been sitting on their calendar. They've been thinking about it, right? They've got that appointment reminder card I gave them stuck on their fridge. They see it every morning making coffee. This is something that they've built up. They've really been expecting it, and really disheartening when your therapist calls to cancel your appointment. But, if you've got a good therapist and they're booked,
it might be a couple months.
It could be another few months before I can get back on that particular person's table again. Yeah. So what do? And what most of us did before the pandemic was we sucked it up, buttercup, and we chugged some Vicks on the way to work, and we blew everything we could out of our nose, and you go in the room and you do your freaking job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Kai's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. Lately, I'm not going to say, any little sniffle when we call out of work, but I am much more cognizant of my health nowadays following COVID. I'm much more apt to call off work if I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
And, I understand the inconvenience to the clients. I do. I also think that all of us are feeling these same changes. And I also feel that the clients also are going through that same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if I were to get sick and cancel my appointments for the day, would you tell the client that, hey, I can't come to work, I'm sick?
There's so much more understanding.
I get nothing but understanding, and I get nothing but grace from my clients. And, of course, when I'm feeling better, I may, open up my schedule a bit more, try to get some of them scheduled in more quickly. But the flack that I would catch for calling in sick has almost completely evaporated.
Yeah.
And both the external flack from like your bosses and your clients and, it's so inconvenient, but also like my internal flack,
Yeah. No, like
I'm sick. I don't feel guilty anymore about saying, what, I really shouldn't be going into the clinic today.
Yeah. Same here. Like I was definitely pre-pandemic the type of therapist that would, come in, work my 20 to 25 hours a week. And if another therapist called in, I would pick up their shift, and I would work myself to the bone.
When I was in my spa days, I was a therapist who would open myself up to take 7 appointments a day.
I'm doing 7 appointments a day right now.
Oh my God. Well, I'm also just a few years older. You'd be surprised how much wear and tear just a few years puts on your joints in this profession. But I did 7 massages a day, 5 days a week. I did that for a while, started to feel the strain, cut back to 4 days a week. Still 7 a day, but cut back to 4 days a week.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
And now I've struck a different balance. So now I work more days per week, but I only do 5 per day.
Yeah.
So on average, I'll get about 4 a day. But I'm in the clinic 6 days a week now. So the workload has shifted just a little bit, but if I'm not feeling well, and really not feeling well,
call in.
Yeah. Call the front desk and have them reschedule my appointments. And at this point in my career, I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah.
If I feel like I'm starting to get a sniffle and I take 1 day off to recover and I'm back to work, that subsequent day, it's way less of a disruption for me than when I'm just going to work sick, powering through for 2 or 3 days. And then because I haven't given my body the time that it needs, like my body just crashes, and now I'm forced to take off.
Even more time.
Usually those take me, when I've crashed, usually takes, a good 2 to 3 days, bare minimum, for me to get back on my feet and feel capable of standing up at the table again.
Yeah.
So
there's a quote that I'm probably going to butcher. It's, if you don't give your body time to rest, your body will force you to rest. Something along those lines, which is something that has kind of been launched into the forefront of my mind over the past 3 years, of rest being so important for everyone, especially us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause I know about you, but I don't know about everyone else. I spend all day around people who are in so much pain every day of their life, constantly. And, sometimes the only relief they get is the hour and a half they're on my table. Sometimes it's up to a few days afterwards. And that is some heavy stuff to just even though I'm not helping them process anything, I'm just there facilitating healing with, the way that I know how to, working the muscles, the soft tissue, things like that. It's still a lot to just kind of hold space for.
Yeah. If there was any benefit that the pandemic gave, not just the massage profession, but probably our country as a whole, being forced into quarantine and being forced
to
isolate yourself. From what I'm seeing, it gave a lot of people the mental space that they needed to really kind of unplug from their daily routine. Just we're constantly busy. We were constantly bombarded with just things that never ended. It never stopped. And we never really had time to ask ourselves the big questions, right? What do I want? Is this how I want my life to be? Is this what I want to do for a living?
Yeah.
And most people that came to massage therapy, I don't think had that particular crisis because, like I said, we're called to massage therapy. I knew I'm in the right place. I think what this gave most of us the time to do is really evaluate our work habits and our work ethic, whether that's, just things like taking time off work when we're sick, but also, quitting a job and going to a different place, a place that's going to pay you what you're worth, a place that's going to, give you a schedule that lets you both, see the number of clients that you need or want to see per week to meet your own financial goals, but also that they'll work with your schedule, that you're not locked into a set schedule or forced to the schedule that works for the business. Again, one of the common factors that calls people to this profession in particular is the ability for massage therapists to be flexible with their schedule. There are a lot of single moms,
single parents,
thank you for the correction. I gratefully accept that rebuke. There are a lot of single parents. There are a lot of, working parents who, when the kids are in school, that's the only time they have to work. They need a job that fits between the drop-off time in the morning
and the
pickup time in the afternoon. And massage therapy absolutely fits that. Whether you're working for yourself or for someone else, many places are able to give you the schedule that lets you work for you. Thank you. The schedule that works for you. So I think a lot of people were just fed up working rigid jobs, and they realized that there's more flexibility out there. I think a lot of therapists realized that they either wanted to leave their corporate massage gig, right? Maybe it's you're working for someone else, or maybe it's a franchise spa or something along those lines, decide they want to strike out on their own and do their own thing. I also see a lot of therapists who were out on their own doing, the entrepreneur thing, and God love them, but it's not for everyone.
It really
Being
isn't.
an entrepreneur is living with a baseline amount of daily stress that I have not experienced in my life. That kind of sustained stress. I would go through bouts of stress, in like college during finals week or something like that, like moments of stress that, come and then they resolve and then they go away. But when I was in Tampa, I had my own private studio. I was renting one of those little suite rental deals. I had one room that I was renting, and I ate myself alive with stress. The stress was overwhelming. The entrepreneur life isn't for everyone. So COVID, kicked a lot of people in the pants. I'm working for someone else, but I want to work for myself. And you've got the other people who are, I'm working for myself. This is a lot of work, and it's a lot of responsibility, and it's so much more than just setting my own appointments and treating my clients. They wanted to go back to the safety and I'm not going to say less responsibility, but just
less risk
of working for someone else. So there was some shifts between those two camps. A lot of massage therapists retired. We saw a mass retiring of therapists, either directly COVID related or COVID influenced their decision. I'm just getting older. I'm getting to the end of my career. I think I'm just going to call it early and just retire early.
Yeah.
I would also note, I don't think that this was as substantial, but I do think that this was a factor. Massage therapy also tends to have, how should we put this? Massage therapy tends to have a lot of very interesting folks, right?
Yes, a great way to say that.
Lots of hippies, right? Lots of free thinkers, people whose thoughts are off the beaten trail, let's say.
On the flip side, there are also a lot of people who have larger egos than orthopedic surgeons in this industry. Like, sweet baby Jesus, you have a 500-hour LMT, calm down.
I've noticed there was, and I don't think I was alone in this, I think many people far more savvy and qualified than I am noticed this same thing. But when you look at the far ends of our political spectrum, right, the far right and the far left, you get into the weird, wacky conspiracy theories. And massage therapy is a diverse profession like any other. We certainly have the more rogue elements, shall we say, right? Therapists who buy into ideas on the more extreme ends of the political spectrum. And just to really kind of bring this point home, whether you're on the far right end or the far left end, vaccine hesitancy, vaccine and the anti-masking, vaccine hesitancy, but also just the anti-vax, like no way, no how movement. The anti-vax movement is very much wrapped up in those two extreme ends of the political spectrum. So whether you're talking about the older therapists who retired, you're talking about a segment of older massage therapists who contracted COVID and subsequently passed away. You're talking about therapists who got COVID and then developed long COVID, so were medically unable to practice. And then you have those who refused to get the vaccine, whether that was an ideological refusal or whether that was a religious refusal or whether that was based on a medical condition, like a medical exemption. All of this is to say, COVID lopped off the older end of the profession. And like we were saying with the massage schools, a lot of delayed graduation, delayed education, reduced the fresh meat that generally replaces the retiring therapists. So,
and there are like so many therapists who haven't practiced outside of a pandemic before. Who are starting to put like,
I couldn't imagine graduating school into the pandemic.
Me either. Like,
and trying to start out in this scenario.
Because
much more difficult environment than I graduated into. And I graduated not that long ago. I graduated massage school right at the very, very end of 2010. I got my license in January, early February-ish of 2011.
Same here.
So, we were still coming out of the economic recession, but we were over the hump of that recession. So things were
going back
on the upswing. Yes, more or less back to normal when I hit the massage scene. So, in another vein, I think another really big thing that COVID highlighted for our industry was the need for increased safety measures in our profession. And I have a couple of different, actually, like it's kind of a two-pronged. On one hand, when we say safety measures, everyone's brain goes by default, right? You're talking about PPE, you're talking about sanitation, we're talking about wearing masks, we're talking about cleaning everything, right? If you've been to massage school, you were taught proper cleaning and sanitation techniques. I was the dean of academics for a trade school in Florida when COVID hit, and I was responsible for managing 5 educational programs. Massage therapy was just one, but I was also managing a cosmetology, a barber, a nail technician, and a skincare program on top of massage therapy. And when our students were initially, like the word was getting out, like COVID was going to be something. Nothing had really shut down just yet, but word was getting out and people were starting to get scared. We called a mass assembly and brought all of our students onto the salon room floor. And we told them, guys, genuinely, what they're recommending for COVID are the same cleaning and sanitation protocols that we've been teaching you the whole time you're in school. If you are nervous about coming to school, understand that this environment you have total control over the cleanliness of. When you come to school, you go into your massage classroom, here's your table for the day. Everything related to this table is your responsibility. And if you are paranoid that you're going to catch an infection, sanitize everything. We told the cosmetology students the same thing, right? Your station, you're in charge of sanitation. This is the one place besides your house that you have total control of how clean and sanitary your environment is. So don't let that be your fear, and don't let that be an excuse to keep you from coming to school and continuing your education. Again, we didn't know in March what we were to find out later on. But on the other hand, when we're talking about safety measures, right, that second prong, it's a lot of other things that I think came into the forefront with these demographic shifts, right, with people changing the nature of how they're doing massage, where they're doing massage. Suddenly you've got whole new kinds of safety measures that therapists were having to pick up pretty quickly on. Things like, if I'm starting to do out calls, how do I screen my clients to make sure that this is a
COVID safe home,
or just, a quality client that I'm going to see versus just some weirdo.
Yeah, which that's always been a thing with our industry, which is one of the reasons why I don't like recommending for newer therapists to start doing out calls, is because most of the time,
I think you need a bit of confidence behind you.
Yeah.
When you start talking about showing up at a stranger's house and walking in their living room and setting up your table and doing your thing, yeah, I think there's a bit of experience, a bit of
street smarts.
I was going to use the word professionalism that just develops a bit over time, where you get a sense that you can kind of control the situation a bit more. I was really thinking about, as COVID forced a lot of therapists to change how we're working, where we're working, what our priorities are. This brought a lot of new safety measures. Yeah, great point is this COVID safe home that I'm walking into, But at the same time, kinds of safety measures that maybe a therapist just hadn't had to consider before because of the nature of their prior employment. Yeah. If you're working for a place like Massage Envy or Hand and Stone or Essentials or Hyatt, one of these chain franchise play, they're everywhere. Everyone knows their name. You're way less likely to get a creep client. You're way less likely to just get one of the weirdos. But if you're going to people's homes, you don't really know what you're getting. Yeah. And so the need to develop, the kinds of checks and balances where like someone knows what address you're going to. Someone knows to expect a call or a text from you saying like, hey, I'm done. I'm heading home. I'm safe. Maybe call someone if you don't hear from me. Yeah. So massage therapists, as we were saying, we were already held to really high safety and cleanliness standards before the pandemic. We already washed our hands before and after every client. And when I say hands, I mean your whole tool. So if you use a lot of forearm and elbow techniques like we do, before and after every session, dude, I'm scrubbing in. I'm washing up past my elbows.
Well, also, not even just using those tools, but depending on how you drape, if you do like a typical diaper drape for every client's legs, the client's leg is coming into contact with the inner crease of your elbow because of how you're holding the leg and how you're holding their arms and things like that. So you still need to wash those areas, because if not, it will still be a cross-contamination.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just casual skin contact is enough to say like you now need to wash that area with soap and water.
For 30 seconds, minimum.
Yeah. We all had to do the hand washing class in massage school where we got all drunk up to the sink and we had to wash our hands, and the teacher had a timer, and it was the first one. But it was to tick the box to say like you have been properly shown how to do these otherwise basic safety and sanitation protocols. But we were already doing this before the pandemic. We were already washing our hands before and after. We were already using fresh, clean, laundered linens for every client, every time. We were already storing those linens in a cabinet when they were clean, in designated dirty laundry bins when they were dirty,
that are covered.
Already do laundry regularly. We were already cleaning, disinfecting any vinyl, like the bolster or the table at the end of the day. We were already doing all of these things. So when the pandemic hit and came out like, oh, this is a respiratory virus, highly contagious, for the most part, not really a lot had to change for us.
Yeah, just put a HEPA filter in the room.
Yeah, the big one was the mask wearing. Masks are still worn in many massage clinics, at least by the staff. Whether they require clients in the building to wear them or not is usually a business decision. But for the staff to protect themselves and to protect clients, and we're the ones that are feet away from their face, person after person, hour after hour, week after day after month, especially during the pandemic. as the mask mandates and the rules requiring masks started to wane, myself and many of my colleagues have just chosen to continue wearing our own masks.
Yeah.
I leave it up to the client to decide for themselves what they feel more comfortable doing or more safe doing. But for me, I feel like I'm protecting my clients more than anything else by just wearing a mask. So
yeah, I feel that a lot of what I do is post-surgical work and working with chronic health conditions. So I work with a lot of immunocompromised clients. Mind you, a lot of them are still wearing masks, and I'm so grateful, and I appreciate that so much on a professional and a personal level. But I'm still wearing KN95s every session, all day, only taking it off to eat, and I try to eat outside as much as I can. We're in Portland, so, it rains all the time.
Outside is hit or miss.
Yeah, so like a lot of times I'll just go eat in my car, get a little bit of sunlight I can. So like I'm still, wearing all of the proper PPE, and whenever I'm even changing the linens on my table, I use gloves. I use disposable gloves whenever I'm handling the contaminated linens, because then I don't have to wash my hands as much, which they get dry. Like a lot of people think, oh, you're elbow deep in massage lotion and cream all day. Your hands must be so like moisturized.
Not when you have to use Dawn soap to 5 to 7 times a day to strip all that oil off.
Exactly.
It's harsh on your skin.
Yeah.
So masks being worn still is probably the biggest, just the easiest thing to point to and say, that's a big thing that's new.
Yeah.
But like we were already cleaning and disinfecting frequently. We were already hand washing frequently. If anything, I just say that it's just been reinforced.
Yeah.
It's just, there's been a much bigger push, whether that's from management, putting a sign in the break room or something, or, a lot of people I've noticed are really self-motivated. Like, I, as a person, don't want to contract or transmit this thing. So I, on my own, am saying I'm going to do this and this and this and all this stuff extra. I'm going to wear gloves when I clean my sheets. I'm going to, I'm going to make sure my dirty laundry is covered. I'm going to make sure that I'm wearing, if not a KN95, that I'm double masking, or I'm, whatnot. But what I found is those tend to be a much more individual decision on behalf of the therapist. The industry-wide thing that I've noticed is our focus on cleanliness and sanitation really hasn't changed. We were pretty focused on that beforehand.
Yeah.
I would say it's masks is the one
like
lingering new thing, which leads me to another point. I think it's interesting that you brought up the fact, Kai, that you wear gloves to change out your sheets. Full disclosure, I don't wear gloves. I just do my thing. But I still like wash my hands, obviously.
Yeah.
But this got me thinking about PPE for massage therapists. When you say PPE, my brain first goes to like what we saw nurses wearing, where they had masks and they had a face shield and they had the paper gown and they had gloves and they had little booties over their feet. And you put all this stuff on, you go into a patient's room and you come out and you strip it all off and you got to put all the crap on again to go into the next room. Obviously, that doesn't happen for massage therapists. That's much more of a medical setting than what we generally find ourselves in. So in my observation, it's been less likely that a massage therapist would wear PPE, which is why I'm glad you brought up that point, because masks and gloves are PPE. So I thank you for that correction in my thinking.
Yeah, no problem.
We are taking PPE precautions. It's just our, quote unquote uniform for what that looks like. It's just a little bit different in our profession. Yeah, like and anyone who's ever had a massage from a therapist wearing a latex glove will tell you it's just
awkward.
It's just not quite the same.
Yeah. We actually don't use latex at my clinic because of how prevalent and common latex allergies are. We use vinyl gloves.
Generic latex.
Yeah.
Just the rubber glove.
Wanted to acknowledge that don't use latex gloves in your practice. That's
nitrile.
Really common.
Yes. Nitrile is the way to go.
Yes.
For sure.
Especially if you're doing intraoral work. Like I used to.
Yeah.
I used to do intraoral work before the pandemic and I stopped, and I'm so happy that I stopped. Oh my Jesus.
Could we just take a moment and for sympathy for the people who get intraoral work who do have a latex allergy and end up with a latex allergy breaking inside? No bueno. This is why we study contraindications, folks.
Yes.
The little things. It's the little things.
Yeah. No, I was actually contemplating entirely taking that off of my menu of services before the pandemic, just because it's like I would work with a lot of people with TMJD, bruxes, and things like that. And whenever you're like doing at least intraoral craniosacral, oftentimes the clients will slip into this state of deep relaxation. And one of the things that happens, especially with bruxism, when you're relaxed, that jaw clenches up.
Yep.
I cannot count the number of times where I've had like my fingers in someone's mouth and I've had to like yank them out because I felt their jaw.
They start biting down on
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not unintentional, obviously.
It's not. Yeah,
unintentional.
it's just something that physiologically happens as a result of the specific pathology that the client has. Actually, before the pandemic, I was contemplating retiring from massage and bodywork completely.
Why?
I've been practicing for 10 years. I'd been, working myself like a horse because life was expensive for me in Texas.
Yeah. It ain't just Texas, honey.
And it was Texas for a lot of things. Just being a trans person in Texas is expensive for so many different reasons. And when the pandemic happened, the state of Texas shut us down, said we can't practice. My job fired us for all intents and purposes so we could qualify for unemployment, which was fantastic of them. And I'm so grateful for that clinic. Like when I go back to Texas, I still work there.
It's going to be a tough business decision.
Yeah,
to make.
It was, from what I hear. I was thinking about just retiring. So I took the time to just kind of sit and be, and like my bills were paid from unemployment. And I, used that time to figure out what I wanted to do with life. I started a diversity and inclusion training company with my best friend called Transforming Wellness. I, did a lot of work in the yoga industrial complex on like dismantling systemic racism and transphobia, homophobia, all the isms within that industry, which it's yoga land, so it didn't work very well.
You think the yoga people would be all about getting rid of the isms, right? You think they're like, if anywhere is going to be a big bowl of crunchy hippies, it's going to be the yoga community.
Well, the thing about a lot of crunchy hippies is they don't like things being pointed out that they need to work on. Because they have this whole, I'm enlightened, I've, awoken, things like that. But whenever you're just like, hey, like you say this.
But then you do this thing and it's like, that's kind of homophobic. Or like, you say you're an ally, but like this thing you're doing is maybe a little bit transphobic.
Yeah, it's like you say you're an ally, but you still go eat Chick-fil-A and things like that.
Ugh, yeah, don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So stuff like that, like pointing out those things, they, ruffles a lot of feathers. But so I took, I think, about a year off from working. I was also planning our move up, or helping to plan our move up from Texas to Portland. And honestly, taking that time off made me realize that like, oh no, I want to continue to work in massage and body work, but I'm not going to work my fingers into nubbins all day, every day. I'm going to, I've been doing this for a while. I've learned a lot. I want to teach. I want to share the information that I've accrued over my decade plus of experience to actually, hope that the next generation of therapists don't make the same mistakes that I did and don't have to flounder as much as I did.
Yeah. See, while you were in Texas, I was in Tampa Bay, sunny Florida. And see, when the pandemic hit, the massage school that I was working at closed and sent all the students home. Mm-hmm. And the staff kept going to the school and like teaching online and whatnot. But basically what I was watching around me happen, if I recall correctly, the state of Florida shut down in about April, and they were pretty much reopened and back to normal by mid-May. By June time, like Florida was back open, everything's open. And the state COVID policy, like the Florida's position on this disease was, well, you guys can all die in the streets. Like, we don't care. We're not shutting it down anymore. Like, businesses are losing money, so everyone's got to go back to work. And that just kind of solidified for me, amongst many other things going on. But that one was the kind of the nail in the coffin. I was like, I don't want to pay taxes and live in a state where my life's value is, well, if you can't go to work, then hoof it.
Yeah, I feel that.
So when we looked into coming to Portland, one of the big reasons we chose this area was because of the more proactive steps that the state of Oregon had taken to try to
reduce the curve.
Reduce the curve. And even now, when you just look at the number of deaths from COVID versus from the state of Oregon compared to the state of Florida, I mean, it's no compare. You're not even comparing the two things. Yeah. I mean, Oregon in total for the whole pandemic lost something on the average of what the state of Florida would have lost in maybe a day or a week.
Yeah.
I mean, just the numbers just are completely incommensurate with each other. Oregon by far did a much better job. If you are measuring success by the number of dead people, Oregon did a much better job. So I was really feeling the need to kind of relocate to a state that I felt, at least on a more superficial end, like I just felt cared about me more.
Yeah.
But on the more kind of detailed end, the massage profession in Florida, I could tell with something as unprecedented like that pandemic coming, many therapists were working those low wage type jobs. Many therapists were just working for a franchise or working for a thing. They're just making things, just somehow making ends meet. And I felt like there was something different that I was supposed to be doing. And I'll be fully transparent. I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't leave Florida with a plan or, a bullet point list of these things that I wanted to accomplish. I just packed up my stuff and, my spouse and my dog, and we showed up in Portland, and lucky for us, Portland was welcoming and accepting. And I will tell you one thing, the state of Oregon, the city of Portland in particular, the state of Oregon in general, they know how to pay massage therapists.
They really do.
I've made some pretty good money doing massage here in Portland. That's not to say that I didn't make decent money in Florida, but man, it's
night and day.
It's apples and oranges comparing the pay scales in Florida versus the pay scales in Portland or Salem.
Or even Eugene.
Oregon is, I believe, the number 3 highest paid state in terms of wages for massage therapists.
No, that's actually one of the reasons we moved up here. Like the job I'm at now, this was always like a thing that we talked about in schools, and like essentially a pipe dream of a job that pays you a straight 50% commission as an employee. That's what I make at my current job. And I am constant, like every time my paycheck hits my account, I'm just like, wow, they're paying me that much? Okay.
See, it was more important for me that I found a job that I felt like they would invest in me.
I get that.
I'm much more willing to accept a perceived pay cut if I feel like I'm gaining training or experience or knowledge or something that's going to help me in the future, or something that's just going to make me a better therapist, a better teacher, a better employee. So changing gears for a second, I did want to highlight some of the economic challenges. When we're talking about the changes in the profession post-COVID, the labor market and the demographic shifts within the field is certainly worth it. We've talked about safety measures and things like that, but the economic challenges, I think, also are worth mentioning. So clearly, when everyone was sent into quarantine and isolation, the demand for massage therapy services just flatlined.
Yeah.
Not only were basically every spa and clinic and everything like that was just closed, but you couldn't even get an out call because it was too risky to go to someone else's house to do massage. So the entire profession effectively shuttered itself. And again, we kind of touched in little breadcrumbs here and there, but when you think about the typical massage therapist, like the textbook massage therapist, you are generally talking about a female practitioner who is somewhere between the ages of 25 and 35, who works on average 20 to 25 hours a week doing massage. And most of these therapists are doing massage therapy on a part-time basis. Yeah. Even those of us like Kai and myself who, I consider myself a full-time massage therapist.
Same here.
If every possible appointment in my week was booked, I'm doing massage around 30 to 35 hours a week. And that's including my nights and weekends doing out calls.
Okay. I was about to be like, wow, that's a lot. Like
that's including my out calls and like for the week. If you add every massage that I'm doing, it's probably going to be somewhere between 30 and 35 hours on a typical week. Yeah. If you are just looking at what I'm doing in the clinic, right?
Your day job.
Quote unquote institutional clients, right? My day job. A full book for me for a week is 29.
Okay.
And that is full time for a massage therapist. And even many therapists, when I tell them that number, like 29 is my limit for the week, that's high for some of them. They're like, dude, you do 29? Like, I know therapists who like 15 or 20, and that's it. They'll do 3 massages a day, maybe 5 days a week. If they're doing fewer than that, they could stretch it out to 6 days. But yeah, I mean, full time, quote unquote, for a massage therapist is generally going to be at a minimum, I would say more than 25 hours a week is full time, 25 to 30. So
see, that's interesting because I actually see it as full time being about 20 for hands-on hours.
So let me check my math real quick. If we're talking about 20 to 25 and we're assuming a 5-day work week, then yeah, we're talking about 4 or 5 massages per day.
Yeah.
4 to 5 a day.
4 days a week. 4 to 5 days a week.
So let's assume 5 days a week, and you're talking about 25 massages. That's 5 massages a day. That's what I do. I'll do 5 a day. But if you're talking about someone who, is maybe a bit younger in their early 20s or something like that, those rubber joints can go a lot further than mine can in my old age. So yeah, when I was in my mid 20s, I would do 7 a day. Yeah. And that was, 3 in a row, go take a lunch, come back and do 4 in a row. But I guess my main point is, what's considered full time for a massage therapist. Even within the profession, there's some debate, but
yeah, obviously
widely agreed. It is certainly well below the standard 40 hours a week that you would assume with most other jobs. So with that being said, like with the majority of massage therapists basically being part-time, and all your income is made in just those few hours a day, COVID just decimated it. We'll never be able to calculate the ultimate loss of income that our profession suffered over the course of the pandemic. Yeah. But I'm positive it's going to be some really high, like nebulous number that doesn't really make sense, like $30 billion or something like that. It's some crazy number, way too high, way insane, doesn't really feel like a real number. But when you're talking about massage therapists from all over the country, every city of every state who were completely unable to make their normal income from somewhere around April of 2020 to somewhere around April of 2021, depending on where you draw the line, when did you feel comfortable going back to work? It's been different for everyone. Some of us, like I was in Florida, technically I never stopped working. I would still go to the school. We were teaching online. There were no students in the building, but the staff was still there, and we had a big enough building that every teacher was able to go into a classroom by themselves and teach online. But for many people, they didn't feel comfortable going back to work until some of them as late as this year, 2023. They are just getting back into the labor market and getting back into the industry. And, it's been 3 years. It really has. So the amount of income, I don't think we'll ever really be able to get a good read on it. But I do know the number is going to be one of those stupidly high, like it's going to be a number that just it feels weird.
Yeah, like what's in Jeff Bezos' bank account.
Yeah. Like that number doesn't even feel like a real number. The other thing that I will say, first part of this topic has really been looking at the therapist side, but a lot of what I do is, business consulting, and I work with business owners, whether they own clinics or massage spas or whatnot. And, I try to help them identify and meet their business goals. But I work with a lot of business owners. And over the course of the pandemic, what I've seen was, dude, a lot of them went out of business.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't blame them. I mean, how many months can you pay rent with zero income before you're just tapped out? Even if you were, the financial textbook of the industry, you were the one, I put all this money aside, I invest all this stuff, I've got multiple revenue streams. I mean, you've set everything up properly, but even with all the best setup and savings and really wise investing, I mean, you can only pay the rent for so many months before all of that stuff just runs out. So, I mean, the pandemic closed, and not just the ma and pa stores, right? Not just the small boutique spas, but they're franchise owners, right? The people who own, a little chain of Massage Envies or a few Hand and Stones or things like that. And when we say franchise owner, I want to disabuse you real quick of the mental image that you've got, kind of one person probably in Manhattan who owns all of Massage Envy. Right?
I think she's in Arizona.
No, Massage Envy, the brand is owned by an investment company.
Oh, that's right. They did the sale in, what was that, 2016?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
The brand of Massage Envy is owned by a boardroom of bankers in suits, and they just own portfolios of brands like that. Any actual Massage Envy that you see, you drive past, the Massage Envy that's in your town, the one. That's most likely owned by someone who lives in your town, right? A local business owner. They're paying dues, basically. They're paying royalties to use the name Massage Envy, but they are a small business owner. They're using oftentimes their own money, their own savings, oftentimes their retirement savings to fund this little business. And just because it's a national chain, if you know anything about franchising, the hell that is the Subway franchise. That's a really fun conversation for a whole different podcast. But if you're even kind of passingly familiar with the way that franchising works and whatnot, just because you own a Massage Envy or a Hand and Stone or a Subway or a Taco Bell or whatever those franchises is, the investment company that owns the brand is the one who's making all the money. The small business owner is the one who's actually shouldering all of the risk. They're the ones that are having to deal with the real estate build out and hiring therapists and marketing and retaining and meeting revenue goal. Like all of that stuff is on them, and they really are small business owners. I've seen these franchise locations from the bottom up, and they start out just like every other startup, which is mostly, crossing your fingers level of organization, maybe a little bit of money, but not a lot of funds that they could just throw money around. And it's a lot of skill and luck and hiring the right people, and all three of those things in the right proportion.
And a healthy dash of privilege.
A little bit. Especially with things like zoning and building codes.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
My, I guess, back to my point, what I'm saying was, the economic challenges of the pandemic, a lot of massage therapists simply were not able to make an income. So like you were saying, they were forced to go on unemployment, or they were forced out of the profession and you got to go find another job, whether that's, outside of our industry, or, maybe that means you go back to school and do something completely different, but it's definitely left a scar. The massage therapy industry has been gouged. There's a chunk of us missing, and some of them just aren't with us anymore. Some of them have retired. Some of them have moved to other professions. But either way, we've also lost a lot of massage businesses, again, you think the franchises are the tried and true, you'll always have a Massage Envy, it's the mom and pa's that'll cycle through, but there'll always be that one Massage Envy location or whatnot. And what the pandemic showed us was no. The franchise spas are just as fragile, and they are just as vulnerable to these outside global market forces as the mom and pop shops, as your solo entrepreneurs, just like when I was in Tampa and I had my little studio that I was renting doing my own massage thing. Thankfully, I had kind of let go of that little practice well before COVID, but I could not imagine the financial hell I would have been through. I've been a solo entrepreneur trying to manage in the days of COVID. Yeah. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add to this topic? Because I was just about to segue into something else. But yeah, the closure of the franchise spas alone, just the franchise spas, affected thousands of massage therapists across the country. Yeah. I mean, if you exclude all the private practice, exclude all the part-time, I only massage my friends or whatnot. Yeah. If you just look at the
practicing therapists,
big franchise spas, right? The big four, I would say, would be like Massage Envy, Hand and Stone, Essentials, and Massage Heights. Yeah, something like that. Just those four brands. We're talking about thousands of massage therapists across the country that were simply no longer able to make a living. Many times small business owners aren't rolling in money. They aren't, ridiculously freaking wealthy.
Yeah.
Most small business owners, anytime the business makes a little profit, it's rolled back into the business. Of course the owner takes a little salary, but many times that salary is not what the owner was expecting they would be able to take when they said, like, I'm going to start a business. I should be able to make $100,000 a year. Many of them are limiting their salaries to something a bit more modest, 50 to 75,000, in lieu of allowing the rest of the revenue to go back into the business and get it funded up. So between business closures, between therapists being unable to make money, I think my final point on this is not only will we never know the true amount of money that has been lost, I dare say we won't know the number of businesses and whether those are franchise businesses or solo businesses or even massage schools that have gone out of business since the pandemic. It's the mark that this is leaving on our profession, I think, is indelible.
One thing I did want to kind of add into this is a lot of businesses are having trouble even holding on to therapists now because the pay that they're offering is not matching inflation. Like when I started practicing, 13 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
Being fresh out of school in Texas, mind you, making $25 an hour was considered fantastic. Like that was a really good job.
Yeah.
Like you work that job for a few years until you can go to one of the really, really nice spas or clinics in town and maybe make $30 an hour.
Yeah.
Here, like I won't even look at job postings, even though I'm totally happy in my current clinic. Like I won't look at job postings unless they pay minimum $35 an hour. And that's even for sending to some of my friends in town who are therapists who are fresh out of school. Like, hey, you could apply here. I think this might be a good fit for your skill set or what you want to do in the industry. Like I won't even look at those.
Yeah.
Unless
I
it's
agree.
20 to 25 an hour. And then I'm just like, oh my God, what are you thinking? That's one thing I've noticed is like just with how expensive everything has gotten in this world, like that's not cutting it anymore. Businesses are going to have to start really thinking about paying therapists what they're worth. And by what they're worth, I mean at least 35 to 40 an hour as just a normal non-management, non-lead therapist.
Would you argue for that same price point for like fresh out of school therapists?
Yeah.
As well?
Yeah, because you have to keep in mind, they have student loans. They have debt that they need to start paying off ASAP. And like, not to mention a lot of the schools almost require you to be full-time while you're in school and still require you to pay your tuition while you're in school. Mm-hmm. So you have to work, usually part-time. Most of that money is going towards tuition and supplies and maybe food and rent.
Sure. I will just throw one tidbit out there. If you're lucky enough to be in a massage school that is accredited to accept federal funding, in which case you are able to apply for a student loan, you're likely not having these same kind of financial challenges going through school.
But a lot of massage schools aren't accredited.
Massage schools took the words right out of my mouth.
Like many
massage schools aren't accredited, so they can't take student loans. Yeah. Which means tuition has to be paid either through, like, you take out a personal loan, like from a bank, or you make monthly payments. So you're going to school effectively full time, but also having to work and make monthly payments on your tuition, books, supplies.
All that. And a lot of times the monthly payments don't even cover supplies. They don't cover sheets. They don't cover your table. They don't cover lubricant. They don't cover books. Like, at least with a lot of the schools that I've looked at over the years.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I am going to offer my own experience. By far, the massage schools that I've become familiar with, they do include the basic supplies that you're going to need to be successful in school.
But it's not enough. Like, a lot of the schools will give you like an 8-ounce bottle of oil and 2 sets of sheets and a discount on a table.
Well, but again, you're talking about a therapist starter kit.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about the high-end premium deluxe package with all the works. We're talking about what does the student need to go out into the field and be successful. And for many schools, they're not even looking that far. What does the student need in this building to get to the end of this massage program successfully.
Yeah.
And for most massage schools, an 8-ounce bottle of lubricant or a couple types of lubricant, a couple of sets of massage sheets, and then like the textbooks, that's generally it. That's generally the gist of what you need. The massage table is even honestly optional. Yeah. Honestly, the school that I worked at in Florida didn't include a table at all. There was no packet. There was no way to get a table through the school, mainly because they were like, dude, we would either have to like order these tables, and that means we've got to up the price on them, right? If we're going to order tables for students, we're going to make a profit on them.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a $300 table, it just didn't feel right for us to turn around and sell that for $400. But at the same time, the school had enough tables on hand. We just let the students use what we had.
Yeah.
But we argued basically that we're keeping costs down by not including these you don't need a table as a student.
Yeah. I understand that. But like the school that I went to and taught at in Texas required you to have a table that they wouldn't cover. The school that I went to here in Oregon to make up the hour disparity did not provide tables. That was an additional cost. Mm-hmm. At least that was my understanding. Mind you, I only went.
No, that was I know the school you're talking about. Yeah, they didn't include it. You could purchase one, but it was in addition to the tuition and fees and everything else that you were paying for to go to school. It was basically just a purchase in the bookstore. You just go to the bookstore, buy a table. Right. So, seeing as how we've been talking, I feel like this conversation, we're trying to drill down what's changed in the profession. A lot of what I think we've been looking at is all, the way it used to be, or like what's changing now. I also think it would be really interesting for us to kind of look into the future. Mm-hmm. If you've got your fancy crystal ball around here somewhere, look into the future and just think about what do we think is coming? What does the future for massage therapy look like over the next, year to 3 years as we, continue to loosen up the pandemic restrictions, we continue to start looking to getting back to normal, whatever normal means nowadays. But for me, the biggest lasting change, the thing in the future that I see really happening, I think I'm going to agree with you on this, is the rates that massage therapists get paid. Mm-hmm. That's, I think at the end of this, the masks are still sticking around. We talked about that, but eventually masks are going to be gone. People aren't going to we're just not going to wear masks for the rest of our lives. I don't think that that's realistic. But what I do think is going to stick around is, we've been talking about massage therapists needing to be paid more, paid what they're worth. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of therapists have been underselling their services, underpricing their services. I think a lot of them are upping the prices to what they're worth, charging what they're worth.
Yeah.
But this quote unquote labor shortage that we're seeing, I'm going to chalk it up to it's low paid, low benefit to no benefit massage jobs are going unfilled.
Yeah.
And based on that, I think employers are having to start offering more competitive wages or more competitive packages, whether that includes benefits, whether that includes flexible scheduling.
Paid CEUs.
Paid CEUs is a big one. Paid time off. Do you offer a 401k?
Well, in Oregon, you're actually required to offer a Roth IRA and PTO in the state of Oregon. If you employ more than, I think it's 5 people, you're legally required to offer that. That is you can't not offer that to your employees.
Man, Oregon treats therapists pretty well, man.
And that's not even therapists, that's everyone. Every industry that is required. And it's one of the reasons we moved up here was because it seems like this state actually cares about its citizens more than a lot of states in the South. But yeah, no, I definitely agree that
it seems that way. It seems that way.
I definitely agree that that's going to be one of the things that's going to change. Is a lot of therapists are just done dealing with the BS of working in the industry and working for a lot of companies that are so disconnected from how the industry actually works that they're just not working those jobs anymore, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
personally.
Well, I think it's happy. A good thing if it forces the market to correct the pay.
Exactly.
I'm a massage therapist. I'm overflowing with empathy. I certainly empathize with the therapists, right? Mm-hmm. I am one of you, and I'm living the same
Same life.
Same crap you're living, for the last 3 years. Like we're in this together, guys. Mm-hmm. But like I said earlier, I work with a lot of business owners, so it's a lot more difficult for me to jump on the anti-capitalist, anti-business
it's not even
bandwagon,
anti-capitalist.
just because I work alongside a lot of these business owners. So I'm forced to take their side on things. I'm forced to see things their way. So in general, it's not a simple black and white issue to me.
Well, one thing I would like to point out is I'm not saying to be anti-capitalist in these approaches.
Oh, I hope I didn't. I didn't imply
you're good. You're good.
I didn't mean that.
No, you're fine. A lot of these businesses aren't charging enough, too.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, the businesses aren't charging enough, and they're using that as a justification for keeping wages low.
Well, Massage Envy's whole... sorry for dropping the name Massage Envy, but when they hit the scene back in 2007, I want to say 2004, 2007, somewhere around there, Massage Envy came about. That caused a stir in the massage profession because basically what they were doing was through quantities of scale, they were trying to offer a much lower price point for massage than what was generally available at the time. So before the franchise spas, if you wanted a massage, you had high-end spas like the Hyatts and things like that, or you had to have a massage therapist who generally was either in private practice or would come to your house. And the price you pay for those levels of massage services is generally going to be higher than what you would pay at a Massage Envy. They literally made the market doing that. It's not a secret. This is what Massage Envy did by setting the price of a massage at a very affordable rate. I think their introductory rate
was $49.
This is $49.99 or $49.95. So cough it up, $50. It was $50 for a 1 hour massage. And I remember there was a lot of rabble-rousing in the profession that they're undercutting veteran therapists. But I think Massage Envy has really proven the value of their niche in the marketplace because they've been a place for new therapists right out of school to go and land. Granted, they're not being paid the same amount that the veteran therapists were, but no one in any profession, brand new, is paid what the veterans in that profession are paid.
Yeah, that's just to be expected.
The way it works. So when you've got an entity like Massage Envy who's able to absorb the bulk of these massage graduates, not only that, but they're able to give them the tools and the experience they need to perfect the skills that they've developed in massage school, right? Massage school is all about developing the skill, not perfecting it. Perfecting it is what you do in the real world. Side note, you never actually perfect it. That's why it's called a practice. But Massage Envy, in my mind, has a valuable position in the massage field. They absorb a lot of massage graduates. They equip those graduates with the tools and the clientele that they need to be successful in the field. And just like anything else, everyone isn't going to be successful, but many people will move from Massage Envy, taking the lessons that they've learned, and they move into private practice, or they move, up into more upscale spas where they're able to charge a higher price point. So I think the overall kind of point here that we're both trying to make is, in the end, I think the pay rate for therapists is going to improve after COVID, whether that's therapists whose businesses are now more in alignment with what the therapist's goals are, I want to be self-employed, have more control, or whether you're talking about just the wages in general. If no one's taking that job that's paying $15 an hour, but they will take it when it's $20 an hour, that's the labor market at work. That's the price of labor. And that's what it is. So if you want to hire a massage therapist, you've got to pay what the market is demanding, just like anything else, So I think the kind of post-pandemic residuals are going to be, therapists are, by and large, we're demanding to be paid more. I think the industry is going to have to respond to that. But I also think the demand for massage therapy on the client side. I think we're seeing a much higher number of clients seeking massage and body work for a million different reasons. That's a whole other podcast. Why? That's a whole other podcast.
Like, if I may share a story on this,
please.
Specifically, so I did come back to work briefly during the pandemic, during my stint in Texas before I moved up here, and the first client I had was I think, psychotherapist who just moved to the city, did not know a soul a week before the pandemic hit. And she had not been touched by another human in almost a year. And she was like private practice at home. I think, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't pry too terribly much. All I know is that she wasn't working with general public face to face. And like, as soon as I put my hands like on her sacrum and her occiput as my resting pose, she started crying. Just because it had been so long since she'd been touched by another human. And that is such a beneficial thing for just people in general. Like, human contact is so important. It's never going to be replaced, at least in my opinion, by like AI and machines. And like that's a whole topic of conversation, but like you can't replicate that.
Yeah. I think the pandemic has, everyone was left in their house, reevaluating their lives and their priorities and their goals.
Yeah.
And obviously massage therapists are no different. So now that everyone's coming out of it, we've been stressed the hell out. Forgive my language, but we've all been stressed to the max for 3 years now. We've been in social isolation. We've been in physical isolation. Many of us have, changed jobs or moved cities, which in any other time period would already be, traumatic enough. But you add the isolation of the pandemic on top of it. And what we're seeing now is just demand for massage therapy. It's insane. I've seen spas who, again, where this labor shortage meets the higher demand. I've seen a spa that has upwards of 1,000 members, paying members every month, paying for their massages, but the entire spa only has 4 or 5 therapists on staff.
Yeah.
So the clients aren't even able to schedule the appointments that they paid for because the place is just understaffed.
Yeah.
And it's not that the spa isn't hiring. They are. They are absolutely hiring.
Yeah.
But just like we were saying, no one wants to take a job at this particular price point. Well, you've got 1,000 clients who can't get massages that they're paying for. This is just one location. I've seen wellness clinics, and I've spoken with massage therapists in private practice who, are basically seeing the same kind of thing. Like, now that it seems to be getting back to normal, everyone is coming for a massage. And it's just hitting at this moment where we don't have a lot of therapists at the moment.
We don't have a lot of therapists that are qualified in the approaches that a lot of these businesses are looking for, too.
Which brings me to another point. If we're talking about incentives that business owners or spas could use to sweeten the pot, so to speak, to try to bring in talent, is cross-training.
Yes.
Cross-training, man. I will tell you, for the therapists that I speak to who are younger than myself, not to age myself too much, but those who are in their 20s and 30s generally tell me that their employer covering CEUs or the employer providing training, basically the employer sponsored education is an extremely important benefit to them. Sometimes it's more important to them than the actual pay rate, but other times, it's other benefits that are more important, like retirement savings or PTO or whatnot.
What happened? Yeah.
But I get, continuing education, I get ongoing training, investing in me, the therapist, consistently ranks as one of the most important things that therapists are looking for in employers. So if you're trying to attract some talent, my free advice for the day is figure out a way of implementing some kind of training program, whether that's continuing ed or whether that's cross-training, therapists to just boost their skills, send them to a class to learn a new modality, send them to a class to deal with a particular population of people, like post-surgical or
Like I actually go in and teach at a few different clinics on a regular basis. Like one's a chiropractic office. I train all of their stretch therapists, which is its own individual thing, which I've seen a lot of therapists start implementing in their private practices, and a lot of business owners starting to do, is offering assisted stretching as a separate service so that clients can get body work that they need and therapists can work a little more without like destroying your hands and wrists.
Yeah.
Like I train all of their stretch therapists. I do continuing education classes there every month, and they bring me in and offer that. And ever since then, like their individual therapist retention numbers are so much better. Their positive outcomes with clients and patients are so much better. Like clients are recovering and getting better faster, and they're getting excited about that and telling their friends, and then their friends are coming in for treatment and things like that. Like especially if you offer PIP insurance billing for
car accidents.
Yeah, it's one thing that Oregon's really, really interesting about, is every auto insurance policy is required to have PIP coverage, which is personal injury protection. If you're offering that as a service, like doing PIP massages, having someone come in and actually be like, okay, cool, 9 out of 10 times people are going to have whiplash. This is how you address that issue depending on what stage in the healing process they're in, whether it's within the first week versus 3 years later with an unresolved whiplash case presenting with a frozen shoulder. Like having someone come in and do those trainings is just so beneficial for the health and vibrancy of the business, and also of the individual practitioners and the clients or patients. And just offering that is so important.
I agree. Yeah. I think taking the initiative to train your staff on something, and again, every business is different, but when I try to conjure broad strokes, right, major categories, I would say, you either bring in someone like myself or Kai who does corporate trainings and things like this for massage therapists, or something like where you take an asset that you already have. Maybe you have a therapist that you've already hired who has shown themselves to be particularly responsible or particularly organized, a good speaker, a good presenter of information. Maybe you promote from within, and invest in your staff that way. Show them that there are other avenues for promotion besides just doing more massages or doing more expensive massages. So I would generally recommend, incorporating training for your staff that is condition specific would be my first one. So that would be like you were saying, like whiplash after a car accident, or techniques to deal with frozen shoulder, or techniques to deal with sciatica. Like you pick a specific condition and then you bring in education about how to treat that condition. Bonus points if it's a condition that your therapists can report to you, the business owner, that they're seeing a lot of, right?
Like forward head protracted shoulders, the computer gremlin posture is what I call it. Like,
when I first started as a massage therapist, I could feel the muscular tension patterns in people's bodies, and I could get a good guess of what they did with their daily lives.
Once you build up that like internal database.
Like once I get my hands on you, like I can pretty much map out where your tension is on your body, and I can put the tension with my kinesiology knowledge of what this muscle is doing. And I can get a pretty good idea of what physical activity this body is doing based on its tension patterns. Post-COVID, everyone has the same tension pattern. We're all sitting at a computer, or we're all driving Uber. So the rounded shoulder, forward head, you're right. It's the same pattern in everyone.
Chronically shortened biceps.
Lost that ability to tell on people because everyone's doing the same thing now. But so recommendation number 1, condition specific classes. Option number 2, modality training. Getting your crew all certified to do a particular kind of massage, whether that's something like assisted stretching, or whether that's lymphatic drainage, or whether that's myofascial release, or therapeutic hot stone, or whatnot. Give them a training, give them a tool in their toolbox that they can use, forever and ever and ever. And then maybe this is a bit off the wall, but my third one is going to be cross-training in something that actually doesn't have anything to do with massage therapy proper. Maybe we bring them in on a class on customer service. I feel like we've all been holed up in our homes, seeing everyone through a screen. I think a lot of us maybe have forgotten little social skills. You know what I mean? Just little the polishing of those social interactions we may have lost here, but they've just gotten rusty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we may just want to take those customer service skills, those consultation skills, like communicating with clients, communicating with coworkers, something that enhances your non-massage skills or the soft skills. Communication, conflict resolution, and de-escalation. Yeah. We're talking about consultation and treatment planning, making sure that you are actually developing a plan for this person and you're not just getting someone on your table and just doing the same massage over and over, but we actually have identified and you've communicated to the client. These are the things that we are working on. These are the things that we'll be focused on next session. This is the progress that we've made today. If you're not able to communicate those things to your client, then the client doesn't know if you're paying attention to them. So the client thinks they're just getting a cookie cutter, massage. Yeah. So those would be my recommendations. Place to start. If you want to incorporate some training, soft skills, condition specific or modality training.
Yeah, I definitely
pick the one that works best for your business needs and your clientele and the team of therapists that work with you. So final thoughts?
A lot's changing.
It sure is. It sure is.
Yeah, no, the industry has gone through so much robust change over the past 3-4 years. A lot of it, I think, is for the better. Some of it, I don't necessarily think is. But I mean, overall, I'm hopeful about how things are going to change and develop.
I'm always hopeful. I think that's a character flaw of mine.
A little bit.
But I see more positive changes than I do negative changes. Yeah. And the negative changes that I see, my intuition tells me that these are phases. They're growing
very
pains.
Temporary.
Yeah, these are as times change and shift and none of us are quite certain what's going on. I feel like the negative changes that we're seeing, which is, we'll adjust to them. Yeah. I think we'll adjust to them. If nothing else, I'm going to fall back on this. Massage therapists as a whole, as a body of people, massage therapists are some of the most empathetic and connected people that I've ever met. These are people who genuinely care about other people. You don't go into massage therapy not caring about people. It's if you don't really care about people, go work with spreadsheets. But you get into this profession because you care about human beings and you want to help them. And by the time all of this is behind us, I feel like the thornier problems that we're dealing with now will have worked themselves out. Massage therapists are resilient and smart, caring, dedicated people. And as long as there are people out there like all of us, I think the profession is on the right track.
I agree.
On the right track. I think COVID gave everybody a little bit of a skin knee, but
skin heals. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. Yeah. Be sure to comment your own questions. If you guys have a topic you'd like us to talk about or a question you just want to ask, throw them in the comments below and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah.
Have fun.